Sunday night, the weekly Astro Live show, live for just my YouTube audience. Really excited to be here. Glad you're joining me. And what we're going to be talking about today is Uranus has stationed direct. We're going to talk about the implications of that for the state of the world, state of society, and what to expect in the coming months. And to kind of just contextualize all of this of how far we've come. And I think we've come a pretty long ways because, we've had this very lengthy saga, hello Cecine, and we've had a very lengthy saga of Uranus having been retrograde in Gemini for so long, so many months, having Mercury then retrograde on top of that, and having, Uranus retrograde as well. And now Uranus has stationed direct. And as Uranus stations direct now, all the planets are finally in some type of direct motion. Now Uranus, of course, Whimsical Farm Girl, hello. Good to see you. Hello, Catherine. So as Uranus stations direct, I think it's very symbolic and important that Uranus is the last planet to finally move direct. Now Uranus is the ruling planet of Aquarius. And what are we on the cusp of? We are on the cusp of Pluto entering Aquarius. And with Uranus kind of leading this charge now, what's going to be happening over the next, couple months, I guess, the next couple months, is, that we're going to be crescendoing into a new era. We're crescendoing into a new era of, again, Pluto and Capricorn being this catalyst for the sort of Aquarian energy. It's not necessarily the same thing as the age of Aquarius. However, I do believe that it is a catalyst for some type of Aquarian kind of age in a preview, I guess we could say, of an Aquarian age, because we are still in the age of Pisces. But as we've been in the age of Pisces for, over 2,000 years, basically, we're starting to feel these sort of glitches, so to speak, in the matrix. We're starting to feel like the Aquarian age. We're starting to get hints of it. And what is Aquarius about compared to Pisces? So over the last 2,000 years, we've been in this era of basically deception, where there has been this mantra of suffering is our salvation. We've equated suffering with salvation, that we need somehow to repent, that we need to, embrace our suffering, and that we need to worship something that's sort of hierarchical. Now, as we enter Aquarius, the age of Aquarius, which again, we're not fully in yet, but we're starting to see flashes of it, we are waking up to, we're waking up to truth. The air energy is very objective compared to Pisces. It's a little bit less about just having faith, and it's actually more about understanding with air, understanding collective ideas. And I talked about this on my TikTok over the weekend. Aquarius is not necessarily just about saying, oh, Aquariuses are weird. Benito, good to see you. Sarah, hello. Aquarius is always typecast as just being the weird character in the zodiac. But I think that that's really doing a disservice to Aquarius, because Aquarius is actually taking the structure of Capricorn, because it follows Capricorn. It's taking the structure of Capricorn, identifying where it's gone rigid and stale, and it's inviting other people to contribute. And Cecine said it exactly. It's also Saturn ruled. And Aquarius is democratically inviting the collective to contribute. I think that's the key word with Aquarius, is contribute and contribution. So the collective, the people in the group, are contributing to ideas, inventive ideas about how to improve the quality of that structure, how to make it more innovative, how to make it more future-proof. And, what we're going to see basically is hopefully the responsible management of change, right? Like that's really important as we're starting to get into that Aquarian zone, but we're confronting also a deluge of Pisces, because we still have Neptune in Pisces, right? So we still have Neptune in Pisces. Neptune in Pisces in its ruling sign. This has been this age of mass deception, mass media, of the truth being oftentimes, or the narrative oftentimes being distorted to achieve a certain agenda. And Pisces, the fish, will sort of swim together. So we do have a little bit of groupthink going on in a lot of ways, but about what? If you think about the environment in which most people in the world consume their content, consume the media, I would argue most people who consume the media are in some state of intoxication. It's usually late at night, and they're usually not really in control. There's no intuition. There's no intuition that's guiding them. They're purely taking in the message that they're receiving through the television, and they're absorbing it as basically it's just facts. It's like there's no it's sort of it's impervious really to any kind of criticism. So that's kind of the dynamic we're up against. But as Pluto enters Aquarius, we're going to get these surprises and these sudden shocks of new information that challenges the status quo. And we already have that, right? We already have this information that conflicts with the predominant narrative. But as we get further and further into Pluto and Aquarius, it's going to become unavoidable, right? Like that there is actually a reality here and an alternative narrative to what's being broadcast. So I'm going to be talking about all of that tonight. But before I do that, I do want to give you a preview of the week ahead. So we're talking on a Sunday nights, and thank you for the live folks joining in. So for those of you watching later, this is Sunday night, we're filming this, talking about the week ahead. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to take out my laptop, and we're going to navigate this together. So let's look at the week. So where are we right now? So like I said, Uranus has finally stationed direct as of today. And because of that, all the planets are now direct. There are no retrogrades at this point. Now, what does this mean? This means that theoretically, from now until April 20th, there are no planets retrograde. So if you have big goals for the year, big aspirations, resolutions, whatever, you want to think about how can I get a lot done between now and April 20th? On April 20th, we're gonna have Mercury retrograde again, but I would extend the timeline even further into like the early summer. So really between now and June, and Casey, hello, welcome. Even between now and June, there should be a lot more forward momentum. So if you've been like stagnating, if you've been stalling on some of your projects, then I would say, like, especially with this new moon energy from the weekend, like this is the time to go ahead. This is the time to piece things together, build new relationships, assemble the business plan, make those connections, finish that paperwork, whatever you need to do, because Mercury deals with like day-to-day tasks. That's all direct now. Mars is direct, which is a lot of our energy and our motivation. And now Uranus even, that's our ability to drive change. And I'm going to finish my weekly forecast with that. But coming into Monday, we're leaving this Aquarian energy behind a little bit. So right now as I'm talking, we have, and Faye said it well, there is a shadow period, but I do think that the shadow period is overplayed for the most part. I think that we pay a little too much attention to the post-shadow phase. I think that, again, these planets are direct. And in the post-shadow sense, it's like, yeah, maybe you're moving forward on some tasks, on some projects that you were kind of stalling on during that pre-shadow phase or during that retrograde. So being in the post-shadow phase, to me, is more about moving ahead to kind of finish up some things, right, that we were stalling on. So anyways, heading into Monday morning, I'm looking at 8 o'clock a.m. Pacific time, but on Monday morning, Catherine's asking, is it similar to shadow work to strength? Yeah, potentially. I think about the fact that, in the post-shadow phase, it's like we are not like fully, like we don't have everything in the rear view mirror from the retrograde yet. We still have to double back. And so again, like the easiest example would be like, I don't know, maybe you had to apply for a new driver's license. You just haven't done that yet. And during the retrograde, you just like couldn't move ahead. It's like you were thinking about it though, you were trying to plan around it, you have some information about how to do that. But now it's like when you actually go forward. So anyways, let's talk about Monday. So Monday morning, we still have an Aquarius moon, just barely in the morning. And eventually the moon will go into Pisces. And right out of this new moon, what happened on the new moon, first of all? Well, you saw my other YouTube. I took a bit more of a somber approach than most astrologers probably for that Aquarius new moon, because I think that it was very strong for maybe building relationships, but with Saturn, you have to make choices. Saturn is the consciousness of mortality and finite time. So you can't be friends with everybody, right? You can't be friends with everybody. You can't date everybody. You can't please everybody. Saturn conjunct Venus on that new moon was basically like you have to make decisions and commitments to who is your best friend, who are you dating, who is in your inner circle. So a lot of people probably made some really nice strong associations and alliances over the weekend, but it's not without some separation. So Saturn's about separateness. So this weekend was the end of one phase of a relationship, potentially in the beginning of a new one. So maybe some people got more serious with their relationships in a good way. Maybe they proposed, or maybe they got married, or maybe they talked about it for the first time, or maybe they talked about being exclusive. Whereas other people, their relationship kind of run its course, and they decided to let go. So especially if you have, especially if you have fixed signs. So if your Venus was in a fixed sign, if your Venus is in a fixed sign, Scorpio, Taurus, Leo, Aquarius, then that Saturn-Venus aspect, or that conjunction, was in a hard aspect to your Venus, even if it wasn't exact by orb, it was in a co-present sort of aspect. Hello, Rachel, welcome. So over the weekend, if you didn't do this, by the way, I think you're making a mistake. I think you really need to audit the quality of your relationships. So what are you missing? Do you feel like you want a stronger spiritual community? So in Casey describing this feeling of detachment, that's kind of an Aquarian thing as well. And that detached energy of Aquarius can go two ways. So on the one hand, it can feel with Saturn, they're a little bit closed off, but on the other way, a detached perspective allows us to reach more people. So whenever I think about Aquarius, I actually think about sort of this idea of like being in a role where you have to interface with a lot of people. Like Aquariuses know how to socialize and network with groups because they're not wearing their heart on their sleeves, like a Cancer rising, like myself. But Aquariuses are theoretically, so like if you're a flight attendant, and you have to deal with a lot of like stressed stressed flyers and customers, it's like you want to be able to take a little bit of a detached approach to them. Because it's like if you become too empathetic and you're an energy sponge in a kind of a Piscean way, it's overwhelming. So the Aquarius energy is actually about, okay, what's the collective consciousness? What's the needs of the group? And less about my own unique emotions. So, this is actually a good new moon cycle. This is a good lunar cycle for forming alliances through the internet or just as a community. So going to a meditation center, going to dinner with a number of spiritual creators. Like these are all Aquarian activities where it's like a little bit less about like, hey, the spotlight is just on me. Like I was at a dinner last night where, we all introduced ourselves, so to speak, or we all like kind of gave our little intro around the table. And I thought that was a very Aquarian moment because it was basically like Aquarius and Leo, right, are opposite signs. Leo would be one person just getting in front of everybody and saying, I'm going to talk about myself for an hour. Aquarius is basically everybody gets their, again, we're talking about contribution. Everybody gets their 5 minutes. Everybody gets their 5 minutes of fame, or everybody gets their little spotlight to talk about themselves, but it's all about cohesion, creating cohesion within the group. So, and you're going to want to know who's in your inner circle over the next few months because we have Pluto coming into Aquarius. And when Pluto hits Aquarius, that's going to catalyze these awakenings, these quantum leaps in awareness. And you want to be on the same spiritual quest as the people around you. Now that's like, to me, the most important question to answer during this new moon over the weekend was, who's in my inner circle? Am I on the same spiritual quest as those people? Because you're going to want a solid support network because society is going to get increasingly unstable. The destabilization, from what I see in the astrology, is going to pick up. So as Uranus stations direct now, and here I'm filming in Los Angeles, and the wind, ironically, is so intense right now that my windows are just. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if my windows just accidentally there's a break halfway through this. So that's like a very Uranian theme. So I can feel it. Like there's a picking up. We're cross-pollinating. The wind cross-pollinates with different. We're talking about the internet, right? We're cross-pollinating right now. We're sharing ideas. And I talked about this a few YouTube lives ago, and I would recommend you watch it if you haven't yet. But I talked about my predictions for the Pluto and Aquarius age. And one of the things that's going to happen is algorithms will allow anybody to wake up and reach the right people with the right message at the right time. So everybody watching this video, I talked about this. Everybody watching this video probably has a relevant message for at least 10,000 people in the world right now. So anyone, anywhere will be able to broadcast their message because algorithms will become so sophisticated that they'll know what you're thinking right now, what you need to hear. And I know that sounds scary, and that can be scary because technology can be misused. But on the bright side, imagine if the world really was your living room, where it's like, I have a really good idea, I'm an expert in Reiki, and I think there's probably a group of people right now who needs to hear my message, who needs to understand how to open their throat chakra. Like maybe there's 10,000 people right now who have a blocked throat chakra and they need to hear something, they need advice, and they don't even know it, but they're going to get that advice. So the Aquarian age, or sorry, Pluto in Aquarius, is going to allow people to reach a lot more people, and anyone to reach more people. And so that will trigger awakenings. It's kind of like the printing press. Rachel asked, do you think we could become disconnected online? Yes, that's the thing though, is we will be conveying information that's very relevant to wide groups of people, which will be the end of fame, by the way. So as Neptune leaves Pisces especially, I see the whole concept of celebrity starting to become a less vogue, and it's not really in vogue anymore at a certain point. Influencers will start to go away. We're going to start to think about championing the everyday person like you and me, right? Like we're all just trying to educate people. We're not necessarily trying to show how cool we are. We're not really trying to show how big our house is or whatever, you know, like it's not flashy. Aquarius is very detached. So people will appreciate those with clear, concise, and profound messages. They're not going to appreciate people who are showing off, showing off what makes them special. Because Leo is more about specialness and uniqueness. And Aquarius does embrace the uniqueness of the people coming into that group, but you are contributing with the group's intentions in mind, right? So with Aquarius, we're all throwing in our 2 cents. And I experienced this at a retreat. I went to an astrology retreat last fall where I met many of the people who are on the comments right now. Casey Benito, David Palmer was there, Robert Phoenix was there. There's a ton of spiritual practitioners and creators. And, I always felt like at that retreat, it was very clear to me that everybody came in with their own concept of, like their own interests, right? And their own concepts of what needs to change in society and their own kind of perspective. But I think we were all pretty aligned on like what the issues are, and just sort of the broad direction though, at least, right? The broad direction we want to go in, but everyone comes in with their own unique ideas. So Aquarius is not going to make it about the individual. It's more about collectivism. So anyways, that was kind of a long tangent, but we do have a Pisces moon tomorrow. So that's coming out of this new moon, which by the way, that new moon was conjunct Pluto as well. So a lot of people are looking for total resets because Pluto is very extreme. Pluto is all-consuming, starting over. So a lot of people, like Catherine said, we're doing spring cleaning. Spring cleaning, we're talking about Pluto spring cleaning huge dimensions of your life. So maybe you're clearing out a bunch of friendships that you're not interested in anymore. Maybe you are disconnecting from a certain family member. Maybe you have decided to completely leave your job behind and pursue something that is more purpose-driven for you. So Pluto is very much about absolute, total transformation and kind of just raising the whole thing. But now we have this Pisces moon on Monday, which is, I think, very empathetic. It's very empathetic. It's Pisces to me is about solidarity. And so the Pisces moon on Monday has this feeling like, maybe we can all commune together and talk about what did we go through this weekend? Who did we sever our ties with? And I think that Pisces moon can really understand other people's experiences in that way. However, I will say the Pisces moon will square Mars Gemini. So on Monday, but really into like Monday night, Tuesday morning, that Pisces moon squaring Mars Gemini, I kind of feel like with all that energy, it is getting it will get a little feisty. People will maybe get into this argumentative mood, but with the Pisces moon, we don't really know where that's going. We're a little bit lost and confused. So what I see is at the beginning of the week, there's going to be a lot of information online, that like news stories that people come upon that disrupt their narrative, and kind of cause chaos. And we're actually seeing that right now. And if you think about one of the biggest trends of last week, and the phenomena was the Davos meeting. So there was a meeting in Davos, the annual annual meeting of powerful people, right? the annual meeting of powerful people, and you know, like they're not even elected individuals for the most part. They're just rich people and powerful people, and that's their Saturn Venus conjunction on the Aquarius new moon. They were probably just making deals and alliances and whatever, right, and colluding most likely. But that was the Pluto conjunction with the moon. So there's power there and mysteriousness. But what I really think is that Pisces moon into Monday, Tuesday, squaring Mars, Gemini, it's like we might get information on like Twitter about something that comes out of those meetings from Davos that just completely disrupts the narrative that we thought we had a hold of before. So the Pisces moon squaring Mars, Gemini is basically, to quote the dude from, you know, The Big Lebowski, it's like new shit has come to light. So new shit has come to light. And now I have to recalibrate like what I think about, you know, this area of life or that area of life. And unfortunately, I can't discuss my full opinion on some of these matters. But, you know, if you know me and you follow my astrology opinions, you know that with Saturn and Pisces coming up and Pluto and Aquarius coming up as well, those ingresses is going to be kind of a reset on how we treat ourselves and heal ourselves. And like, what are we supposed to do to tend to, you know, our well-being? So that's as far as I can go with that. But basically, we're going to be seeing a lot of conflicting information about some of that stuff over the next few months. And I think even starting tomorrow and Tuesday, we're going to get a lot of conflicting information about what's really going on there. So I think it will disrupt the narratives. So, but in terms of a personal thing, Pisces moons are usually very creative, very imaginative. And with the Mars square, you know, it's like maybe there's a way in which you can really actually vocalize these dreams and write things down, you know, write down what's in your mind, what's in your imagination, write that stuff down. So if you're a creative person, this is your time to write lyrics, do something like that. But getting into Wednesday, we do have that moon conjunct to Neptune. So I think Wednesday morning is like peak confusion, peak delusion, you know, and, you know, things like that. Yeah, and I think that with that Pisces moon, I don't know. I'm not like a huge fan of the first couple days here. I do feel like it's a little bit lost, which is weird because we have all these planets direct. So it's like we have all these planets direct, but the Pisces moon, we're getting, you know, we're getting a little bit of like a fog, a veil. Someone's trying to throw a veil over us. We don't really know what the narrative is supposed to be. But I think what's interesting is by Thursday and Friday, we get the Aries moon, and that's going to be a little bit more passionate. But then by Saturday, we get the Taurus moon. I think Saturday is pretty interesting, especially Saturday morning, because we have the Taurus moon squaring the sun. So we have an exact square between the sun and moon, and Venus enters Pisces here. So let's find out, when does Venus enter Pisces? This is going to be important as well. So Venus will be in Pisces. Oh gosh, sorry, I'm going backwards by the hour right now. I probably should have done day. But Venus will be in Pisces as of Thursday evening. So Venus will be entering Pisces finally. And, you know, Venus was very heavily involved in that new moon. So Venus was conjunct Saturn on the new moon. And, you know, with that entry into Pisces, I feel like there's a dissolving there. There's a dissolving and a letting go and a surrender of certain relationships. But also there may be this sacrifice that and this devotion towards somebody. So with Saturn Venus conjunction over the weekend, it's like you should have picked some people, you know, pick some associations. And I'm not saying you have to completely part ways with everybody who you haven't talked to in the last week. You know, like we don't have to be too extreme about that. But it's like, you probably already know like who you're on the same path with right now and who you're on the same spiritual quest with. And that Neptune and Pisces is like, all right, I'm like really willing to trust these people. I'm really willing to put my faith in these people. But for others, it's actually a bit of a dissolving. It's like, I'm willing to kind of let go of this other relationship that was kind of impeding my growth. But, you know, Venus is exalted in Pisces, so it's never a inherently bad transit. Venus will square Mars, Gemini at some point in the next week. That may be a little bit of a just agitated conversations, really, in relationships. But you know, Venus is also our income. Whimsical Farm Girl, thank you for joining. I'll see you next weekend. So Venus in Pisces, you know, that is our, in a lot of ways, our money matters, the economy, things like that. So Venus in Pisces, you know, in this day and age right now where we are, squaring Mars, there may be conflicting reports about the health of the economy. Where are we at? Where is inflation? What is it really? So I think that there's a lot of mixed messages this week between the Pisces moon for a couple days, then the Venus and Pisces energy. I don't really know like where we stand on value, the economy, things like that. And, you know, keep in mind, Pluto still has to hit that 29th degree of Capricorn. And I think when it does in February and March, that's probably when we get sort of, we feel like a chapter's closing on that. The whole theme of that, because Pluto's been in Capricorn since 2008. So I think 2008, those themes of like too big to fail are coming back sometime in March. But in terms of the week ahead, like I said, there's a lot of empathetic energy with Pisces moon, confusion a little bit there, but maybe creativity for some people. And then by the weekend, we really get, I just feel like by the weekend, there is a little bit of a crisis point with that Taurus moon. And I say that because we will have a Leo full moon on February 5th. And that Leo full moon, Uranus is T-square to that full moon. Exact. It's T-square to the sun and moon there. Almost exact. And so Uranus is kind of playing this role of, you know, the change agent, the great awakener. And so in that hard aspect to the Leo full moon that's coming up, it's like Uranus isn't going anywhere. And again, I don't really know why some astrologers were painting that Aquarius new moon as like purely good and positive, because it's like Uranus rules Aquarius, so it is the chart ruler of that new moon, and it's going to rear its ugly head. I don't know if it's ugly, it might be exciting, but it's like Uranus is going to rear its head on the full moon to basically say, all right, everything you thought, if you still thought that you know, that path for you was like okay to just hold on to, that path of least resistance, I'm going to come in and destabilize that even more. So Uranus is that sort of shock points, and it's still it's living with us through this entire lunar cycle. So, and those full moons are culminations, right? So those full moons are fruition. It's the fruition point. It's the culmination. It's the crescendo. It's the climax. And so with that Uranus square in Taurus, it's shocking us into a different way of expressing our needs, expressing ourselves within that group maybe. But, you know, I think also about Uranus and Taurus being about values, right? So it's like, again, do you, and I kind of I don't think I finished this thought earlier, but it's like, do an audit of like, what are my values and who is in my life right now? Are those people like on the same, my friend or my partner or my family member is like going to judge me for that, right? That's heavy Saturn energy. Feeling judged for your values, feeling judged for what you say. And that Saturn-Venus conjunction is all about that. Feeling judged by who you associate with a little bit. So sometimes that's the negative aspect of Saturn. But then Uranus coming in to square that full moon is basically saying like, whatever you feel self-conscious around in terms of, you know, your associations, who you go out to dinner with, who you take pictures with on social media, Uranus squaring it is going to make very unexpected people your friend and make very unexpected people your enemies. I think Uranus is kind of playing musical chairs with us here, where it's like, wow, I actually agree with this person a lot more than I thought. Like, I'm actually on the same page as somebody who I thought was on the opposite side of the political spectrum. Because Uranus and Aquarius is all about, and we're in Aquarius season, remember, it's all about bringing this community, this really unexpected, unique and vibrant community together of people who have maybe one or two things in common. Maybe that's it. When I think about Aquarius, I think about, you know, football teams. It's like, does the quarterback and the running back, do they like each other in real life? I have no fucking idea, right? Like, it doesn't really matter. All I know is that whenever they hand the ball off to the running back, he does a good job. So Aquarius is this idea of like, we're coming together around a collective idea. And so I think you're going to make very, very, very interesting friends over this Aquarius cycle, because we feel this basically climax of Pluto and Capricorn. It's like, we're at the end stage of Pluto and Capricorn. We're no longer putting our faith in bureaucrats. And honestly, I can't even believe, I don't know why people ever did that, because I think that's pretty mindless, but it's like, I realize now that the people who were looking out for us, the people who were setting the table, the people who were regulating everything and assuring us that there is some sort of better world that we're creating. It's like they're not doing that, right? They're just meeting in Davos and basically putting their feet up, and I almost see it as a form of mockery, right? Like, I don't really think that I don't really see it as it's almost like they know, right? So they know how it's being perceived, but they're doing it anyways. And so it's almost like, what are we going to do with this scenario, right? Like, what are we doing when we feel like we have no power, right? So Aquarius is basically saying, all right, there's a sort of idea of like, we're all commingling here, we're networking, and we're putting our heads together with all the air energy. We're putting our heads together and thinking collectively. So I think that, this lunar cycle is actually quite destabilizing, but in kind of an interesting way. So I want to start to broaden that discussion though, because I do have an important sort of download that I wanted to share with you all. With all these planets stationing direct, and now all these planets are direct and no longer retrograde, and Uranus being that last planet to station direct, we are finally going full speed ahead to that Pluto and Aquarius point. And so over the next 2 months, because we're about 2 months away from Pluto and Aquarius, over the next 2 months, what I'm seeing in all my meditations and looking at the transits is we are basically seeing a lot of surprising and new information that, again, completely destroys the narrative that many people have been holding on to for maybe their entire lives. So there is going to be information that you never thought was necessarily, going to be the case. And I think that what we're leading towards is some type of awakening, right? So some type of awakening. We think about the sort of the Earth split that's going on right now between the 3D and the 5D. I think that's pretty obviously happening right now. So we're going these two different directions. And in that context, it's like there's people who are staying very grounded in the 3D, and they believe like very, very strongly that their savior is a person in an institution somewhere in an ivory tower who has some type of expertise. They have a PhD in something, so we should all listen to them, or whatever their accreditation. Like, people still live in that world. Like, people still live in this world of, it's like, oh, you went to this college, therefore trust everything you're saying. But we also have the 5D sort of path that people like you and me are on, which is more about ascension. And we're, yes, still manifesting things, still taking responsibility for our actions, still believing in karma, but also realizing, sort of like the fish, realizing that they're in water. So we're like starting to wake up to that. So it's like we are in water here. Like, there is some kind of permeable energetic field that does connect to all of us, right? And that sort of awakening is going to enlighten you in a lot of ways. And I think we are at the precursor to a new sort of Renaissance era, an age of enlightenment. So what's going to happen with this Aquarian energy is we're going to start getting these messages out to broader groups of people through the internet, through these surprising news stories that are going to come out that basically show you that, the emperor has no clothes. And so through these types of shocking stories, and also through people being able to broadcast the truth and broadcast their message increasingly, there's going to be more people wanting to jump towards that 5D path, to really think about, okay, how could I have seen this coming? How can I gain the tools to be more aware of what's coming, my own intuition, and trusting that again? So this is really important to note. So when you think about the whole concept of like paganism, we think about paganism as being trusting your instincts, trusting your intuition, living with nature. And that's been, a practice that humans, to me, are actually born with, right? We're born with instincts. So if you think about, a lot of, like, a child will often have a psychic gift, and a child may be able to see into past lives. And we always kind of dismiss that as being, not, in keeping with, it's not natural, it's not normal, we have to shut that out. And it's like, we actually, with Christianity, it's almost like we sort of bastardized paganism, bastardized it as this evil thing. And so we started to come up with this concept of like the horns as being satanic and evil, but they don't actually, if you think about the origin of all that, it's actually more about instincts. And I would actually recommend people try this. This is something that I've done that's worked for me, and it doesn't have to work for you because everyone has different guides and mediums. But when I meditate, in a forest, I'm always in a forest, and I completely dissolve myself. I completely dissolve myself with the trees and then the forest and the sky and everything. One thing that I do is I pretend that it rains. Once I'm really in opening the chakras, I pretend that it's raining on me. And when it rains, that conducts electricity. So all of a sudden, when it rains in your imagination there, when it rains on you and you're on the forest floor, it activates the whole body in a different way, a whole new nervous system. And then I let the sun come up after it. And when the sun shines on me, all of a sudden, I realize that humans have dormant sort of appendages that can kind of grow out, and things like antlers. So that kind of stuff happens, and you can do that. And if that doesn't happen for you, maybe you have a different sort of guide. But for me, it's like I turn on some, if you think about humans all have a tailbone, and I don't know what the number is, 1 in a million people or something are born with a tail. Likewise, humans have similar sort of nerves on the back of the head as animals, right? So we are connected to animals. And why would the ancient prehistoric humans have this ability to be aware of the back of their head, the back of their neck? It's because you're in a forest. So imagine, and you don't have a way to survive unless you rely on your instincts. So if there's a bear coming behind you, you better damn well know that with your instincts. So the prehistoric, everyone in prehistory, right? Everyone before civilization had the instincts to know when a predator was coming. They had the instincts to know when they had to feed their tribe. You know what I mean? So we were very much tapped into all of this. And what happened was during sort of this age of Pisces, basically, we took away people's rights to their own instincts. We started to take that away with the church saying, this is the truth, this is the way, and anything besides that is satanic. But that was basically like a psyop, to use the word. It was basically a psyop to control and take control away from the pagans, because the pagans had amazing instincts, and the pagans could know, again, when a storm was coming, because they were tapped into the animal instincts. But they also knew when something bad was going to happen, just broadly speaking. So what happened over the last 2,000 years is we've just completely stifled out our own instincts. And what's happening at this point is that the only way is when you take that away from people, it's like what we're seeing in society is people basically selling the externalized instincts as other things, as culture, as racy movies and stuff like that, and explicit material. And it's no, but you actually have everything you need right here. And what's happening, where I'm going with this, is that the 5D sort of split that's happening right now is people are tapping back into these instincts. We're doing it together for the first time ever. So we're doing it through the internet. We're all talking about this collective awakening. We're all talking about these collective instincts. We're all talking about spirituality. And so the Pluto and Aquarius energy is going to allow more and more people to come online in that way, to come online by turning on the instincts and opening the chakra system. And what happened, and this is going to get a little bit darker, but what I really see with Saturn and Pisces is the people who are deciding not to wake up and to only put their faith in these external authority figures to guide them. What's going to happen is those authority figures will be exposed as frauds, basically. And when that happens, the people who decided not to pursue the spiritual path are going to become very depressed, because Saturn and Pisces is all about mental health and depression, basically. So if you have nothing left to put your faith in, where do you go, right? Where do you go? And just to give you something that hit me the other day when I was driving. I drive in Los Angeles all the time because I live here, and it's gotten to a point where most people don't really know how to drive. Most people, if you really it's actually pretty alarming. But most people don't have more of a analogy, a metaphor, a manner of expression. Then it was kind of that it was just an expression, right? So what's really happening though is that people are actually going offline. People are actually starting to check out, and they don't necessarily realize it yet. A lot of people in our world have problems that they're seeking solutions for, but they're seeking the wrong solutions. So someone comes to them and says, I have the answer for you, I have the solution, here, take these. And then it just like it causes them to have all this sort of aloofness, and they're basically walking around clueless. They're all just walking around like a robot. And why? Because they were looking for a solution from an external authority saying, you need this to solve this. You need this to solve that. And unfortunately, again, I can't fully divulge what I'm actually discussing because there are rules here, unfortunately, but my hope is to eventually make my own channel on my website so I can talk about this openly. But if you kind of understand what I'm really trying to say here, just think about the percentage of people who are being prescribed things for themselves that they don't really need. I mean, what percent of Americans, let's just think about that. What percent of Americans are prescribed things and on things right now? What percent of people are on things right now, are taking things right now? Probably 80%. And what are those things doing, right? What are those things doing? Well, it's making it hard for them to function at this point. So what we're seeing is a dysfunctional world. People literally are so dysfunctional because they're so scared, because they're so afraid, because they haven't woken up, that they've numbed themselves. That's the word I was looking for, Rachel. They've numbed themselves, and they think that these authority figures have their best interest. They think that they have their best interest, but they don't, right? They're just putting people into a sleep state. And so it's getting to a point where I have trouble functioning in society because when I go out and drive, I don't think this is a cynical thought. I actually think that tomorrow when you're driving, pay attention to this. Look at the other drivers. Do they seem like they're checked in? Do they seem like they're checked into the room? No, they're checked out. And what are they waiting for? Do they have a purpose at this point? Do they feel that they have a purpose? They probably don't. They probably don't. They wouldn't be able to tell you what the purpose is. And that's not to say that they can't have a purpose, but it's because they've bought into this idea that I don't have something within me. I need it from somebody else. I need something from somebody else. I have a lack. I'm saying lack because, Lindsay, you just commented and you finished my sentence for me with your last name. So there's a lack. There's a lack of something. There's a lack of something inside, supposedly, and you have to reach for external solutions. That is the 3D path. And what's going to happen is that once Pluto is in Aquarius and once Saturn's in Pisces, there will be this dawning of a realization that we can't rely on these people anymore who were supposedly helping us. We need to rely on ourselves. And if you're not hooked into a purpose at that point, then what happens? It's kind of an unfortunate thought. But I think what we need to do as spiritual guides is we need to help people. We need to serve people and not take a cynical approach. Because I'm not talking about any of this from a judging place per se, although I do feel like it's kind of crazy to me that people continue to buy into the main narrative at this point. But it's like, you're not going to wake up by taking their solution. You're not going to wake up that way. That's going to numb you and put you into more of a sleep state. The way to wake up is to go inward, right? That's the irony, is like you have the answers right here. So when I meditate every morning, I do breath work every morning, I tap into my instincts and then my instincts guide me. And then you realize how much power you actually have as a sort of awakened, instinctive individual. And life becomes a little bit easier. It doesn't solve everything, obviously. The human condition is sort of necessitating struggle. But, again, you should be a little bit closer to the truth. But also what happens when you wake up is you look around and you realize, oh my God, everybody is still sort of an agent of the matrix, so to speak. So it's a pretty dark place that we're in. I don't really want to sugarcoat that. And again, unfortunately, I can't. So I've had some comments from people recently that say they've said my throat chakra seems to be closed, but this is why. Because unfortunately, I can't fully discuss all of this. But if you're really kind of tapped into what I'm saying and you're at this frequency, our higher selves are having a conversation right now. We're having a conversation right now between our higher selves. And if you take my meaning, there is this sort of solution that's been proposed for everybody lately, the past few years, and it's not the solution. So that is what's going on. And so there's going to be a comeuppance there because you know, Pluto in Aquarius is going to excavate the supposed objectivity. And I guess this is what will hopefully connect the dots for you. Aquarius deals with things like science. And Pluto in Aquarius Pluto exposes in Aquarius the science. And what happened when Saturn and Jupiter conjoined on December 19th, 2020? If you just Google world events in late December 2020, you'll realize what I'm talking about. So that's my way of speaking in code to all of you. So go back to that Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. Go back to what was announced at that time, what solution was announced at that time. And now connect the dots that Pluto is about to hit that point again for the first time in March. And Pluto is going to excavate whatever Saturn and Jupiter supposedly announced as the solution, the answer to the world's problems, the answer to our conditions. And it's not really the case. And if you are still on this, buying into this other narrative that you're set if you just buy into their solution, then unfortunately you're going to have to really recalibrate your thought process there. So I think it's really just going to change everything. It's going to change everything because, again, Pluto exposes, and if Pluto exposes that as a fraud, I think a lot of people are going to be shaken. A lot of people are going to be shaken because they thought they could trust these companies. They thought they could trust these corporations. They thought they could trust these bureaucratic divisions. And Rachel is right. The fact that we can't talk about it, exactly. And that's Saturn and Aquarius, by the way. That's Saturn and Aquarius regulating the internet. But Pluto is about empowering us through the internet as well. So Pluto is giving us the tools to kind of work with that new information. So Pluto and Aquarius will give us that information. You know, and yes, Kitty saying it, people are waiting for something that's never going to happen. Exactly. And actually, that's a great point. That is a great point because what's happening is really people are holding on really tightly to the answer that they think that was given to them. And they want it to be the answer so desperately that when evidence comes out that it's actually not the answer, it's like maybe half the answer and it's only a quarter of the answer. And now I think we're down to like maybe it's 10% of the answer. People are still holding on and insisting, no, you need that. You know, if you want to go into this business, you need that. If you want to go to this place, you need that. And it's sort of a mode of separating people, mode of judging people. But it's like, you know, we already know based on actual evidence that it's not really working. So again, really the theme of Pluto and Aquarius is going to be, Pluto and Aquarius is going to expose all of that. And so that's why my advice really is to continue to open your instincts. Right, and Cecile is correct that Pluto takes a long time. So you're right, it's not, there may be a catalytic moment when it hits your Aquarius, and then after that, it's sort of more of a glacial sort of unraveling of things. But I usually think when Pluto enters a sign, there's a shock point where it's like something big happens, and then we spend the next 20 years trying to understand it, unpack it. But really, like, you know, rely on your instincts, you know, tap into something and use your instincts and develop them. Be able to turn on the chakras instantly, be able to open them instantly, be able to activate the rainbow body, be able to do these things when you need. And then obviously be able to close your energy off when you need, because boundaries are really important. And Annalise, I appreciate it. I appreciate you saying that you can understand what I'm saying because, again, I'm speaking a little bit in code, unfortunately, because I have to do that. But if you know, as you go through my content, it should become pretty clear that pretty much everything I've been talking about is pretty in line with all of this. So I'm looking forward though to sharing more about it. So I'm hoping to I might start like some type of video series on my website. You know, so I think that will hopefully happen soon, and that will allow me to speak a little bit more openly. But in the meantime, I think we have our work cut out for us. We have our work cut out for us. I think we need to, I'm also might start a Rumble channel, because I know Rumble apparently is a little bit more free. So if anybody's interested in Rumble or anyone's used Rumble, let me know. You know, if that's been a platform that's been interesting to you, or, you know, if that's worked for you. Yeah, Casey, definitely check out my website. It's linked in all my YouTubes, my other YouTubes. So I'm gonna dial off from here. But I really appreciate it. I think this might be our biggest live audience so far. And if you're not watching live, check us out live next time. And I appreciate everybody who commented and contributed. I really tried to get to all the comments, but just know that, yeah. And Benito, good to see you as well. And I did my best to get all the comments, and I think your comments actually really helped me finish my thought. So I appreciate everything here. So, sorry, one more. Okay, explain Pluto trends to different houses. Yeah, Sassine, I have a video from last September about Pluto through the houses. I would just, on my TikTok, I would check that out. But also, if you want a reading from me, get a reading from me through the link in my bio. If you want to go to my retreat, I'm hosting a retreat in Croatia in September. If you want to spend a week in Croatia with me, where I do custom astrology workshops, and I'm also giving everyone a complimentary birth chart reading at the retreat, join me in Croatia. That's also through the link in the bio. And I'm actually teaching astrology courses right now. Taught my first round this weekend. It was really fun. But if you missed the deadline to enroll, I actually have a discounted price on my website right now you can still join the second class. You can still join the second lecture of either my intro or intermediate course at a discounted rate, and you still get the recording. You still get the recording of the previous lecture, so you still get access to all the information. And Catherine, thank you for joining the class. And Sarah, I appreciate your support, and I'm glad you also like the code. My Scorpio-ness, sometimes I also appreciate speaking in code, and I've done that before. I've done many videos over the course of 2 years now that have completely been in code, and so hopefully somebody excavates that eventually. But anyways, I appreciate all your time, and you know, really appreciate you know, especially on a Sunday night. It might be 2 a.m. for some of you. I don't know, but take care, and I will be here every Sunday night, hopefully collaborating with you, getting into the 5D, getting into the awakening stage, and hopefully eventually I will be inviting collaborators onto the show. So take care, and we'll talk soon.